Oh, hi there. Ollie Anderson here, coming at you live in a pre-recorded video from my office. Today, we're going to be talking about bitterness. What does it mean to be bitter? How do people hold on to things for so long that they just end up with a bad taste in their mouth that they then internalize and project out into the world around them and just see all kinds of reasons to be disappointed and angry and outraged and upset all of the time? The Buddha said that holding on to anger is like holding on to a hot comb. You're only going to burn yourself. And bitterness is basically the same thing. It's when you've been holding on to something unreal for so long and trying to maintain its hold over you so that you don't have to change and grow, that you end up burning yourself. And so in this video, that's what we're going to talk about. How we become bitter, what to do about it, and how to let go and stop burning ourselves so we can live our real lives. To really understand bitterness and how people become bitter, we first need to understand anger, because really bitterness is just resentment, which is like a low vibe kind of anger that's just diffused and gets permeated throughout our lives because we don't know what to do about it. That's going to make more sense in a minute. When it comes to anger, though, there are two kinds of anger. There is healthy anger, which is a very, very good thing. Anger is an amazing emotion, even though it often gets shamed in our society because people are scared of what might happen if people do get angry. And then we all start rioting, tear down the system and build something more real. But just in general, anger is an emotion that can help you to protect the things that are real to you and that you care about, and to set healthy boundaries and to energize you to move forward towards whatever it is that you want to do with your life. It's an amazing, amazing thing. So some anger is a good thing. We become bitter, though, when we get engaged with a kind of unhealthy anger. In relation to the real anger, which is directed at something specific and then dissolves, unhealthy or unreal anger is projected at something that doesn't really exist. It's kind of a phantom in our minds. And so we don't have any way to direct it, and it becomes diffuse. There's no specificity in terms of where it's aimed. It just kind of permeates our lives as a kind of undulating, mysterious force that bubbles away underneath everything that we do, making us more and more pissed off and more annoyed, purely because it is aimed at something unreal, and so it can't go anywhere, and that just brings friction, frustration, and misery to our lives. So I want to say that before we get into the bitterness stuff, just so you know that anger itself is a good thing. Like, you should be angry sometimes because there are all kinds of reasons to be angry that are justified and even righteous, if you want to say that. And if you don't get angry, well, that makes you just as unreal as never getting angry. But if you get angry in an unreal way, then you're just going to end up holding on to things that you can't actually grasp. Then you're going to become bitter. So let's get into this a bit more. In short, we can say that anger is bad when it either has nowhere to go, in the way we just said, because we don't have a purpose to channel our anger into, for example, or because we're just angry at some phantom in our minds, which we'll get into in a bit more detail again in a second, or because we're angry not because of something that's really happening out there in the world, but because we are filtering our anger through the ego and our projections, and we're trying to get things from life that we can never get from life or from the people that we share our lives with. And so our expectations and all these kind of things that the ego rests on and needs so that we can keep deluding ourselves and thinking that the ego is real, well, they're not met. And then we get angry as a way of protecting the ego, which is actually unreal. And so when we try to protect the ego in our way, it just makes things worse, because the ego is the main source of problems in our life, because it's the thing that stops us moving and flowing and growing in a real way, because the ego is the illusion of separation and independence. But really, we're all connected and we're interdependent. And so protecting the ego is going to stop us from the natural flow of life. It causes us to freeze, it causes us to stagnate, and then that causes problems. When we're holding on to things and resenting people and becoming bitter, it's because our anger has been filtered through the ego in most cases. The reason for that is because we are worshipping something, or we are putting something on a pedestal that is not real. And I'm going to tell you a bit more about that so you know what I mean. If you want to live a real life, then really you just need to do two things. You need to uncover the truth, raise awareness, and then you need to live the truth, accept the truth, and then do something with it. And you constantly need to just be doing those two things: uncovering more truth, raising more awareness, and then going deeper and deeper into acceptance and taking more and more action that's real and that is aligned with the truth. I.e., you do your best and let go of the rest because you could trust yourself to do what you need to do and then trust life to fill in the blanks. If you don't live like that, well, you're not putting the truth as the foundation on which you're building your life. That is just going to cause you to feel a lot of shame because you become disconnected from yourself and who you really are. You become disconnected from what life really is. And then to kind of deal with that shame and to fill the void that it opens up in your life, you end up trying to fill it with things out there in the world that you put on a pedestal. This is what I was talking about a few seconds ago. When you fall into this trap, when things don't go to plan, which they won't, because you're trying to put things on a pedestal and treat them as something that they can never be, because only the truth is going to be able to fill that void inside yourself and keep you moving and growing and evolving as a real human being. When you put things on a pedestal and they go wrong, inevitably, then you end up with what I call, for the sake of this video anyway, if only syndrome. So for example, maybe you were in a relationship and you put that person on a pedestal because you didn't have that relationship with the truth where you were uncovering the truth and then living the truth. And so you felt this void inside yourself, and then you put this person on a pedestal as a substitute for the truth. It's like, wow, this person is going to save me. This person is the answer to all my prayers. This person makes me feel complete. Then, of course, when it does go wrong because you're putting too much pressure on them, because anytime you put someone on a pedestal, you're basically dooming them to have a big fall at some stage. Well, then the void comes surging back in, and then you end up being angry at that person. And then you become bitter because you realize that that person was actually just an image, not the real thing. And so you don't have any way to direct the anger, and the bitterness just gets worse and worse and worse. You said to yourself, if only it had worked out with that person, then I'd be happy. Then if only it had worked out, I wouldn't feel so bad. If only, if only, if only. But it's all bullshit. You would have felt bad anyway, because when you got into that relationship with that person, you were just using them as an elastoplast on a broken leg or something and trying to fill a void that can only be filled with the truth. And getting back to that truth is the only way that you're going to overcome bitterness and start moving and flowing again with life, which is the antidote to resentment and all of those kind of things that we're talking about. Another if only, maybe you got your own business or something like that. You had a business deal that you were putting up there on a pedestal. If I get this business deal, finally I can feel like I'm a worthy human being. I can feel like I made it. Mummy and Danny are going to be proud of me. I can brag to all of my friends. I can feel like the man, basically. But of course, you put it on a pedestal, so you weren't actively engaged in the process of doing what you needed to do to make it a success because you were too outcome dependent. You were putting all of your self-worth, you were outsourcing it to this business deal, whatever it is that we're talking about. And then when it collapsed, well, you just felt really bad about yourself because the void was opened up again. All of the distraction that you got whilst you were chasing the deal or hunting for it is no longer there to distract you from the void. And so you're just left with the emptiness inside yourself because you've been disconnected from the truth. And so you're not living in a way that is truthful. You're putting something else as a substitute for the truth. And then you get annoyed with life and with yourself when things don't work out and whatever you put on the pedestal collapses, as these things on pedestals always will, and you're back at square one. They're in the void. Only now, when you're back in the void, you've got this extra level of resentment because you're filtering the anger through the ego, and the ego is telling you, if only that worked out, then I wouldn't be feeling this way that I'm feeling right now. If only, if only, if only. But actually, if you can avoid the if onlys in life and focus on the only, which is the truth, I'm pointing down because there's a foundation of truth right beneath me right now. I can feel it. Well, if you can do that, put the only there, then you don't need to worry about all these if onlys because you know that all you really need is already within you. And then you don't need to be bitter because there's no need to be angry. If the reason that we become bitter is because we have this void inside ourselves and we're trying to fill it by putting things on a pedestal and not seeing them in a real way, Well, surely the solution is not to just keep putting more things on a pedestal and hope that it may eventually work out. It's to stop putting things on a pedestal and to reconnect to a solid foundation in our relationship with ourselves. That means instead of trying to outsource our self-acceptance to these things that we put on a pedestal, thinking, for example, that this relationship is going to finally allow me to feel good about myself, or this job is finally going to allow me to feel proud about myself, or whatever it is that we're seeking. If we can flip the script and start from the bottom up and build some solid roots where we actually have a foundation of truth and acceptance for ourselves first and foremost, then we no longer need to put anything on a pedestal. And we're not going to get in these situations where we ask people to be things that they never can be and then end up disappointed and getting angry with them because our ego can't take it. What we need to do is to realize that nobody needs to be on a pedestal at all. Not because there's anything wrong with people in the world, but because if you put somebody above you, they're going to look down on you. That's how the saying goes, right? That's because the only reason you would put them in that position is because of the shame inside yourself. And they know about that. And so that you're never, ever, ever, ever going to be able to have a real relationship with somebody or something by putting them up there as the be all and end all of whatever it is that you're looking for in life. Instead, you need to turn inwards and you need to work on your relationship with yourself. I know I'm being a broken record. When you do that, though, your shame is going to dissolve, and then you're going to be able to accept yourself, and then you're going to be able to forgive yourself, and then you're going to be able to forgive others. The only reason we resent people is because we can't forgive them. And the only reason we can't forgive people is because we can't forgive ourselves, because we've got this void inside ourselves, because we've become disconnected from the truth at some level. I'm trying not to be a total broken record because I've talked about this in a lot of other videos, how in childhood or somewhere back in the past, something happens that causes us to be ashamed of who we really are. When that happens, we create an ego unconsciously, but the consequence or cost of that is that we send certain parts of ourselves into hide it. Then we always feel that void because we're always disconnected and fragmented and split within ourselves. And so then we get in these cycles of trying to put things on pedestals that can never save us or give anything real. Because if you put something on a pedestal, it's not real in the first place. It's a projection of what you think you need that you can only get from inside yourself. And so ultimately, the way to get over resentment and stop being bitter is twofold. One is to stop looking up and to look in. Don't put anything on a pedestal except for the truth. And that's not even on a pedestal. It's just wherever it needs to be because, it's all encompassing. It's the truth. It's wholeness. The second thing is to realize that if you can't forgive somebody, then ultimately what's happened is your anger has diffused. It doesn't have a specific place to go. It's no longer real anger that's moving and carrying you forward in life. It's the kind of anger that's lost and is turning against you. The reason that it's lost is because you've put somebody on a pedestal or something on a pedestal and you're angry and bitter because it didn't work out. And because that was just a fantasy anyway, because you were trying to fill the void, so you projected some phantasm onto a pedestal, then the anger can't go anywhere because there's no specific direct thing in the world. It's not trying to protect you and serve anything real. It's trying to keep you in this unreal relationship with whatever image you've put on the pedestal because the anger is in the service of the ego instead of something real. And so if you know those two things, keep filling the void within yourself by working on being real, and then learning to let go and forgive by forgiving yourself, which is a consequence of the first thing, then you'll be able to start moving again and to start freeing yourself from all of this unreal bullshit that makes people bitter. This brings us back to the healthy anger that we spoke about at the beginning of the video. If you take everything off the pedestals and you work on uncovering the truth, raising awareness, and then living the truth, accepting the truth, and then doing something with it, then you start to put yourself in the process of real life, of moving towards wholeness, of integrating the shadow, making the unconscious conscious, and becoming a more real version of who you are. When you do that and you keep moving and you feel like you're growing and evolving, well, the bitterness is going to start to dissolve because ultimately, as you move towards your real life, because you have a real vision or a real purpose, then your shame is going to dissolve as well. because you're going to become more and more whole and less fragmented. If we don't have a purpose for ourselves, then the anger again can become diffused. It can go on all over the place. If we choose a purpose, the simplest way to do so being to understand our values and then to create a plan of action for making those values valuable to others. If we can do that, then we're still going to have this real anger, which is a good thing, like I said. But not only are we going to be able to use it to protect ourselves and our boundaries and the people in our lives that we care about and all those kind of things, we're going to have this energy that we can direct into our vision like rocket fuel. Instead of it just being diffuse and going towards all these phantasms and these fantasies that we put up on pedestals, we direct it into more truth, to bring in more truth into our lives and acting in a truthful way and being who we need to be in life to get where we need to go. That's a simple way of looking at it, but it's very effective because you're not caught up in all of these mental cobwebs from the past that are making you hold on to things that you don't need to hold on to. As you move towards your real vision and you become more whole and more purposeful and more capable of building flow in your life, then all of those little resentments, all of those things that you thought you needed to hold on to maintain your ego are going to be seen to be totally unreal. Because as you step into your real life, all of the beliefs and stuff that are making you hold on to the things that you resent because the things that once were on pedestals that didn't work out, it's all going to dissolve. And you're going to see through the actions that you're taking that there's a real version of you that you can fully accept, you can fully embody, and that you don't need to resent other people over, because ultimately it's just between you and the truth. And when you get to that point, your relationships with others are going to be better. You don't have to put them on a pedestal. You don't have to look down on them. You can just meet them as one human being to another, because you're not holding on to things that you don't need to hold on to. So that was a ramble about that. If you feel like you're struggling with bitterness, you need to really ask yourself, what are you substituting, or what did you once substitute the truth with? There's going to be something in your life that you've put on a pedestal. It didn't work out in the way that you wanted it to, or that your ego needed it to. And you're still dealing with the emotional aftermath of that because it shattered your view of reality, or it will shatter your view of reality if you let go. But actually, that's a good thing, because the view of reality you've got is keeping you in this place where you're not seeing clearly, and so you're not going to get the best results that you want to get. The truth will set you free, but first it will piss you off and make you miserable. And if you take things off a pedestal and you see why you put them on a pedestal in the first place, you're always going to see that you were trying to fill this void with inside yourself. When you see the void, it dissolves as long as you get moving again. And that's why it's so important to have a sense of purpose or a vision or a direction for where you're going. It's going to make you more real. So that is the way to overcome bitterness. Let go of anything that stops you moving, basically. We put things on pedestals because we don't believe in ourselves. And the only reason for that is because we lost touch with the truth and we picked up some kind of shame. You can dissolve it by getting real and taking action. If you want to talk to me about any of this stuff, you can book a call on my website, ollieanderson.co.uk/talk. I love going deep into this stuff, and I'm pretty confident at this stage now that I can help you to move forward, whatever you're dealing with. So that's a free call if you want to do that. Otherwise, hope this video helped. Stay real out there. Don't hold on to anything unreal. And peace to you.